even though there's one game left, the Chicago Bulls have pulled the plug on the season, and it's a strategic reason why, especially after Buzelis suffers a twisted ankle in last night's game. It's more reason why we ain't going to see no Bulls that matter in the final game of the season. We'll talk a little bit about that, plus the rumors around the Chicago Bulls and where we are as far as the tank race as well. We're going to talk about all that, plus dive into the mailbag right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. So, before yesterday's game, the Chicago Bulls officially shut down Josh Giddey, Anfernee Simons, Nick Richards, and Guerschon Yabusele for the remainder of the season. That was before yesterday's game, so that means that they're not coming back into this game. That's just simple put. The Bulls needed to lose both their final two games to lock in the 9th seed, and that's typically like what that is. I don't think it's anything for that. The last few games are about positioning, not necessarily competing at any meaningful level, and I think that's the right move for the Chicago Bulls. At this point, you got 2 games left. Even bringing Josh Giddey back really wouldn't have done nothing. We brought Buzelis back in yesterday's game, and we saw how that went, right? So now the question about that becomes who stays. We all know that Josh Giddey has a contract for next year, so unless there's a trade made, Josh Giddey's going to be back. But out of Anfernee Simons, Nick Richards, and Guerschon Yabusele, all hitting unrestricted free agency along with Collin Sexton, the natural question is, do any of these guys come back, right? And I think it comes down to fit, timeline, and where this new front office really wants the Chicago Bulls to be next year, right? I had said for a while under Arturas, I didn't see the Bulls committing to tanking for 2 straight years, right? I just didn't see that happening. Now, we could see another strategic tank, whereas maybe the season doesn't go the way the Bulls want over the first 35, 40 games, then they tuck tail again, right, next year. But then with the words from Michael Reinsdorf in regards to them wanting to win, but wanting to win if it's sustainable, right? And, even the word that the ownership didn't necessarily want to commit to a tank either, right? So, we'll see what happens in that, but I think when you look at it, Nick Richards has a huge chance to come back because you're going to need a backup center. And even with the Bulls having $65 million in cap space, $115 million underneath the first tax apron, all that $115 can't be used towards players that aren't already on your team. So, I know there's been the common thing and things said by, a lot of Bulls fans of, well, none of these guys are coming back. No, some of these guys are going to come back. I think Collin Sexton and Nick Richards are the two that I would think the Bulls are probably going to make the most push to try to keep. Anfernee Simons, I could see him wanting to go to a winning situation and not staying with the Chicago Bulls. Guerschon Yabusele, for what it's worth, has already talked about wanting to stay with the Bulls. And having a forward like that can play, both forward positions and the center, small ball center that is, maybe they keep him around. The Bulls have a guard-heavy roster, so needing to keep forwards and bigs around could be exactly what the Bulls want to do. But it really does come down to the timeline and where the Bulls are in that timeline, especially if they do make a trade for, or if they trade Jalen or Trey or somebody like that over, the season because there's value there, then, some of those guys coming back could become more of a reality for the Chicago Bulls. So we'll see, right? But it's clear, at least the things stand right now, Giddey's going to be a piece that we're building with, until further notice. But, with Billy Donovan, it being up to him if he wants to stay, I don't see the Bulls moving off of Josh Giddey if that's the case, because you know how important a point guard is under Billy Donovan's system. So we'll see, right? But overall, those 4 guys being shut down, it all makes sense. Last 2 games of the season, it's not really changing much for the Bulls. But then we got into the Magic loss, right? And I didn't do a post-game show yesterday because I'm going to be 100% honest with y'all. It's towards the end of the season. I watched that game, and I was utterly disgusted by that game. And to be 100% honest, too, I was fucking frustrated that Buzelis went down with an ankle injury in a game he shouldn't have been playing in. I get it that he's young. I get it that he wants to be out there. But this is why the final 2 games of the season, I don't think the NBA is going to ding you for a player that was legitimate and had an injury. So it just, listen, That's what frustrated the hell out of me. Now, I don't think Modest's injury is anything that's going to be serious. I don't think it's anything that's going to last longer than a week. It's not going to impact his offseason. I highly doubt all those things. But I think when you just look at it, like, why even risk it with Modest, right? Like, why risk it? You got a team like the Memphis Grizzlies that was putting out G League players all in their final games. They played 6 players last night, 6. And the person coming off the bench had to play 40 minutes because they were only bringing 1 player off the bench. You know, that's like protect your players, and sometimes you have to protect them from yourself. I know that Modest is a competitor. I know that Modest probably got in the Bulls' ear and Billy Donovan's ears like, listen, it's 2 games left. Let me go out here and play with these guys. You got Trey Jones, you got Leonard Miller. Let me continue to play with these guys, but sit his ass down. And so now it's probably guaranteed that Modest Buzelis is not going to be playing in that final game. But, you know, something that we did get, Leonard Miller, another 15-point game, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and a block. Love seeing that. Trey Jones is finishing this season on a heater, an absolute heater as well. And, you know, it's good to see those type of things. Rob Dillingham, another mixed bag game, 4 of 11 for him. But this is a game where the Bulls, the Magic pounced on the Bulls early. Like, it looked close early, but once the Magic decided to separate themselves from the Bulls, there was nothing the Bulls can do en route to a 24-point loss to the Orlando Magic, which, again, is a strategic loss that the Bulls did need to maintain that 9th seed in the spot in the lottery where they are. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into the Tank Watch portion of today's episode. But it's just that, like, seeing Modest go down with the injury in that game, it was fucking frustrating, to be 100% honest with you, right? But Trey Jones, Leonard Miller, they're building some momentum. And the loss actually helps the Chicago Bulls because it helps us maintain the 9th spot in the tanking odds, which gives us still a 20.3% chance at a number 1 overall pick. But we get into that a little bit more. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to this. It's all focused on the draft, right? And that's what the Bulls are trying to maximize whatever they can with the draft. And that's the focus of the team. It's been clear for a while, and it definitely needs to be the focus of this team because the Bulls team needs talent. Which brings me to my next topic, right? There's been a lot of debate from Bulls fans on what to do with this draft. And the best player available versus fit debate is going to be one that's there every single draft, especially when you're a team that's not winning like the Bulls, especially when you're a team with a top 10 pick, right? And the one thing, I've said this before, I think a lot of fans are still focused on a big and saying that we absolutely need a big because that's what we came into the season with. And we still do need a center of the future. I want to be clear there, right? But you know what the Bulls need more than anything as far as a fit? They need a true cornerstone. And they have pieces to build with. Giddey and Modest are pieces to absolutely build with. They're still trying to show if they're pieces that you build the whole entire team around, but you have another shot at getting one of those guys in this draft. And so I think you have to do that. Like, when you look at it, it's going to be guard. It's going to be big. Wing is something that we've heard that the Bulls could, address as well. A lot of the draft intel now on the Bulls, too, you got to ask yourself how much of it is still valid with a new front office coming in to run this draft. I think you have to look at the draft board of where you are. That has to be the first thing. Who's going around it? And it seems like players like Keaton Wagler, Darius Acuff, those guys now are probably going to go 6th and 7th, right? The guy that's still kind of most likely to go to the Bulls is Braden Burry, so I think is an excellent fit with Josh Giddey and Modest Buzelis. If you start going into trying to get a big at that spot, that's when you start going to reaching, right? I've seen a lot of draft boards have the Bulls going after Anfernee Simons, which I personally think is like, that's way too high to pick him. Like, if you get the Portland pick at number 15, then that's a good place to take him or Thomas Hall, Jaden Quinton. Like, that's a good place to take those guys, right? But I think for the Chicago Bulls, if they're going to want to go big there, at number 9, if they stay at number 9, even Yaxel may be a bit of a reach, but then again, with his NCAA tournament, maybe they do it. Heinz Steinbach could be another bit of a reach, but again, maybe they do that. But it gets down to, regardless of position, the Bulls need to take the player that their scouting department, whatever else, really feels like can turn into a star. And that's what they have to do, in my personal opinion. Now, that doesn't mean overlook the floor of a player, which is something that we have overlooked way too long, is taking, and by taking the player with that has the best chance to turn into a star, I don't mean like the raw potential guys either. Like, the Bulls have taken raw potential. Dalen Terry, raw potential guy. Julian Phillips, a raw potential guy. Even Patrick Williams to a degree, right? I don't mean that. I mean, you still want to see some what they've proven as a skill and what looks like translatable NBA skills right away. Too many times have we taken guys that their translatable skill was, oh, well, they can turn into anything. Like, you have to know something, right, that they can turn into. So, I want the Bulls to do that. But, I think this whole debate, when it comes down to it, it still comes down to, you got to take the best player available. You look at when the 76ers took Joel Embiid? Did they not take him because they had Nerlens Noel on the team? No. Did the Celtics pass on Jaden Tatum because they had Jaylen Brown the year prior? No, right? Because they figured it out regardless of position, how to do those type of things, and you bet on the talent. That's what the Bulls really need to do in this draft. That's what I want to see from this draft is the Bulls bet on the talent, right? And in that regard, do that, right? So, I think the new front office is key for them to come in, not really force anything, but to do things that are smart when it comes down to it. So, and then just add talent to this team, and I think that they can do that. I think Braden Burries is perfectly fine as a backcourt mate with Josh Giddey, even though he's a little bit undersized. I think his dog mentality on defense, his ability to three-point shoot. I just think you get a lot of the stuff that we've seen, the good things that we've seen from Josh Giddey and Trey Jones in the backcourt are the same things you can see from a Josh Giddey, Braden Burries backcourt. What Braden still being a defensive guy, but more willing shooter and scorer than what Trey Jones is. I think that could work out some for the Bulls. But we'll end up seeing draft coverage is starting. Tomorrow's the last day of the season. So next week, we're probably going to do some front office and coaching stuff. We're going to start touching on the draft too as well. I think the first thing that I'm going to do is round up all the mock drafts for the Chicago Bulls, and we're going to say, hey, these are where the most prominent mocks have who they have the Chicago Bulls drafting. I think that's a good place to start, and then we'll start going position by position and doing the usual thing I do in the offseason with the draft. So gear up. It's going to be a very fun one. But last topic before we get into the mailbag, tank watch, right? I just want to talk a little bit about this. Going into the final day of the final weekend of the season for the NBA as a whole in the regular season, there are a couple of things that are still in air, but everything's kind of in control of the players, right? For the Bulls, it's simple. They lose their final game, they lock in the ninth worst record in the league and the ninth spot in the tank watch, which brings with it a 20.3% chance at a top 4 pick and a 4.5% chance at the number 1 overall pick. It's just that simple. The Bulls lose the game, they get the ninth spot in the tanking odds, and then when the draft lottery comes around in May, the Bulls will be ninth in that, have those odds, and we'll see what the Bulls, if they get lottery luck, if they can move up, something like that. So very simple. It's straightforward for the Chicago Bulls. Lose the final game, you get the ninth spot in the tank odds. For the Portland Trail Blazers, it's multi-layered. They have if they win their final game, which I believe is against the Sacramento Kings after winning last night against the Clippers, they get the 8th spot in the Western Conference. Now, they still have to go into the play-in, and they'll have 2 chances to win one play-in game, and if they do that, they move into the playoffs. If they move into the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls get their pick, which is likely to be 15th in this draft, and then the Chicago Bulls can roll into the draft potentially with a top 10 pick and the first pick outside of the lottery. That gives you a lot of runway to get what you need to get done, and you could take the best player available at number 9, and then you could take a position of need, a big at number 15, which I think would be just make this draft thing so much more clear for the Chicago Bulls. Now, it puts more work on me in the offseason because you have 2 first-round picks, so I'm going to have to do conversation for the 9th and conversation for the 15th. But I think that that's just what makes sense for the Chicago Bulls personally. So let me know what you guys think on that down below. Going into this final weekend of the season, everything's in control. And we'll see if the Bulls can get a loss and the Portland Trail Blazers can get one more win. And then after that, we need the Portland to get one more win after that in the play-in to at least make the playoffs. They make the playoffs, the Bulls get the pick. It doesn't matter what they do in the playoffs. They cannot win a single game in the playoffs. But the Bulls get that pick. And let's hope that we can do that. With that said, though, it is Saturday. That means it is mailbag day here. Let's get into these voicemails. This first one that we got, this one's from my brother Corn.
What's the word, King Drip? It's your brother Corn. Hey, man, let's get back into it, man. First of all, just a quick one. Appreciate everybody, especially you, King Drip, for reaching out, truly reaching out to your brother. That conversation, I needed that. Love you, brother. You my brother for life. Brother from another mother. Appreciate all the comments and the prayers. Appreciate everybody. So, but, all right, let's get away from this depressive shit because your boy Corn back. Let's get away from that shit. Get away from that shit now. Again, appreciate all of y'all. Appreciate all the love and the prayers, man. I needed that. I truly fucking needed that. But, in the words of Sam Cooke, I was born in a river, in a little tent. And boy, ever since, but it's been a long time coming. But I know a change gonna come. And the change is we finally supposed to get rid of these 2 dumb motherfuckers. These two, first of all, much love, because I know Billy is probably dealing with a lot of mental shit as well. So, but we talking about strictly basketball when it comes to that. And my condolences for all of his losses and things that he's dealing with, of course. But at the end of the day, this is the Chicago Bulls here. No one bigger than the program. So, it's time. And I can't wait. I can't wait for the full shakeup to come. I can't wait the day that we actually replace AK and Donovan. And the question I have for you, Drip, because I can't wait because you've been doing, I've still been watching, and I've seen you've been doing coaching candidates and all that, right? Now, my favorite coaching candidate is your favorite coaching candidate, Chris Quinn. GMs, I'm going to leave that to you. But I want Chris Quinn. I want that as my coach. That would be the equivalent of the Chicago Bears having Ben Johnson. That would be the equivalent of my Las Vegas Raiders getting Clint Kubiak. I want Chris. I like the names that y'all was naming, Mike Malone, all that. The other one that I felt like that was a favorite. But at the end of the day, that's who I want the most. The GM, that's my question. Who would you want as a GM, Drip? If you even thought of it yet. If you haven't, cool. But can't wait for you to actually speak on the coach that we actually want, and that's Chris.
First of all, hey, Corn, you already know we got your back. And I want to say this. I love how everybody, after they heard Corn's voicemail, sent Corn well wishes. I always say that we're building a community here, and that was one of those moments where it really felt like we were a true community. As many people reached out, over voicemails and talked about Corn and stuff like that. Man, I'm just glad that we were able to help uplift you, brother. With that said, with AKME gone, it does bring a new era for the Chicago Bulls, right? And it brings hope again for a fan base that completely lost hope for the end of the AKME era, right? And so now it's all up to this front office, the new one that comes in, to make the necessary moves to get this team where they need to be, right? So when you ask about my favorites as far as to replace AKME, Matt Lloyd has become one of my favorite to come. He's a guy that was here towards the end of the last three-peat. He was here during the whole Baby Bulls era up to the Rose era, and so he would have scouted Kirk Heinrich, Luol Deng, Jimmy Butler, Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, right? He would have been the scout that did that and part of that team. So that already shows. You look at now what he's done in Minnesota, being one of the key decision makers there and already kind of knowing the familiarity of how to deal with the Reinsdorfs. Matt Lloyd has become my probably favorite guy to get this exec position, whether it's GM or president. He's probably my favorite guy. If you can get Matt Lloyd and get Chris Quinn too, if Billy Donovan does leave, hey, that's a perfect offseason for me and what I want for the Chicago Bulls too. So Matt Lloyd, Chris Quinn, that's the 1-2 punch that I would love to see. And hopefully that brings the Bulls some success, Corn. All right, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Vikram.
What's up, Haize? Vikram, how you doing? Yeah, no, everyone's probably really happy about this firing. And I think you're going to get a lot of calls about this, but I still wanted to give my thoughts on getting Bob Myers. I think it's just like the perfect time to get someone like Bob Myers. Casey Johnson actually said this in a tweet. Let me read it. So the Bulls entered the offseason with a lottery pick, the potential second first round pick, and then $65 million of salary cap space in a major market, and an ownership that promises like mostly longevity as a GM. And I think with the current roster makeup, it's kind of the perfect time for someone like Bob Myers to take over and really turn around the franchise. And I think it's a very strong spot for him to be in. But also I feel like Bob Myers kind of thrives off of like what's already in place. And the way the Bulls are looked at right now, it's just like such a shithole of a team, right, nationally. And if Bob Myers turns it around, that could really amplify like what his legacy really is in the NBA. And I think he realizes that it's not as bad as what people are making it out to be right now in like the national media, with like having Giddey, Modest, like a good draft positioning, Noah Senge coming in next year, and utilizing like Trey Jones, Jalen Smith, however, and all these like expiring contracts. And I feel like Bob Myers can look at this and think like, oh, this is a great thing to, like turn around. And I feel like this, if we were to go after like a already seasoned GM or something like a front office member, this is the guy to get. Also, he is the biggest name on the market, I assume. I don't know if he's interested in being GM again, but if he is, this is the guy that we should go after. And everyone talking about Billy Donovan becoming GM, like, I'm just like, why? Like, I think, I don't know, something about Billy Donovan, I'm more than okay with giving him another chance. But the only reason I would be okay with giving him another chance is if he allows mid-range shots. I think it's a big thing that really pisses us all off. And for him to fully restrict that is, if it's just this season, sure, whatever. I don't really care. Like, I also feel like he's not stupid, so it's like, why would he ever like fully get rid of the mid-range shot? He's a good coach. He should know that. So yeah, like if he's that into analytics, like that's like, I feel like that's weird because like you're over inflating how much analytics like actually means, that like actually shows that the mid-range shot is not good. So I'm okay with keeping Billy Donovan if he turns that around. But other than that, like we need.
I think Bob Myers is the perfect GM for people who just look at somebody who had history and worked on a championship team. But I think also there's some reason for trepidation there. Bob Myers, who inherited when he took over the decision-making part, Clay and Steph were already on that team. So yeah, he would have drafted guys like, Dre, right? But, some of those, a lot of the two key guys were already there. Now, I'm not going to say that makes it easy. You still have to build a championship team. You still have to do that. He went out and got Kevin Durant, took advantage of a good salary cap situation. But then the latter, like the last 5 or 6 years, Bob Myers missed on a lot of – he missed on much as many draft picks as what AK missed on. So I don't think he's the perfect just to sit there and you can just blindly say, oh, he's going to replicate this success, because I think what it proves is that past success does not guarantee future success. It just does not. And so Bob Myers is a good candidate, not one that I look at and be like, oh, the Bulls suck. But no, I think it's that. But I don't think he's this savior that some people have marked him out to be just because he was the guy that was there during the dynasty era of the Golden State Warriors, because you have to look at the hits, you have to look at the misses. He had, like, when you look at it overall over his whole tenure with the Golden State Warriors, it was probably about as many misses as there were hits, to be honest with you. And that's where you kind of got to look at it. So I don't think it's as perfect as some try to make it out to be. It wouldn't be bad, though. And he is the biggest name out there for sure, too, as well. So take that for what you will. All right, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Oscar.
Hey, what's up, Haize? It's Oscar. I'm so excited for these news about AKME out of the front office. I had some high hopes for them that first year or that summer when they got Lonzo Ball, Caruso, and DeMar. The only part that it still saddens me, I was a big Lowry Markkanen fan. Wish he could have stayed with the team long term, but besides that, definitely mismanagement of, player contracts, waiting till the last year and not pulling the trigger on any move, potential trades from reports saying that, especially that Lonzo Ball, there's times where, sorry about that, my alarm. But besides that, just mismanagement. I feel like Ayo Dosunmu was one of the biggest Chicago glue guys on the team, and that wish him all the best in Minnesota. But I feel like that was a big player that I could have been a supporting member on these teams, especially now with AKME out of the office. Besides that, keep up the good job. I love hearing you guys content, especially on Chicago Bears Central as well. Love you guys. Appreciate it. What you guys think? Thank you.
I think everyone had high hopes for AK, both internally and nationally. I think when you look at the way that the national media reaction was when the Chicago Bulls were able to hire AK, it was almost universal acclaim. People didn't think that AK was going to fail at this job, and he did. I think that just goes to show, like I said in the last voicemail, past success doesn't guarantee future success. And you never really know how somebody's going to be successful at each different stop because they're all very different. And so, the AKME thing, it was a lesson learned. People were saying we couldn't possibly get worse than Gar Pax. We did, right? And so now, as for the new person that comes in, They just got to, success isn't guaranteed. They got to show it. And then the faith is going to be restored in the fan base if you continually show it. And we'll see if they can do that. And if they can do it consistently at a high level, and hopefully they can, because hopefully this franchise can get out of the hell it's been in and we start looking like a legitimate franchise. All right, let's get into the last voicemail for the day, man. This one's from Sean.
What up, hey, Sean calling. Just listened to the last pod. Great episode. Here are my thoughts on Michael Reinsdorf being more hands-on. How much worse can it get? I mean, AK was poorly ran, and he was hands-off. But I also think there is some truth to what AK and Mark Eversley did say. But also, they're trying to save face. So, I don't know about that. But the Zion trade, I'm iffy on it. Because if we can get a Zion that gets a second chance and a fresh start and is revitalized and loves basketball again, go for it. We're not really giving up that much. But if we're getting a Zion that plays 30 games, I say we use the 2 picks if we get the Portland pick and see what we got before we start making trades for stars like that. Anyways, let me know what you think. Peace.
Blame goes around. Michael Reinsdorf has his share of the blame too. But I think the thing that it seems like Michael realizes his share of the blame and wants to do better. And he even said that I need to be better at this job, right? And so, that recognition hopefully comes with legitimate change, legitimate better decisions, and then we can, get to the place that we need to get to. Like, he said the right things as far as recognizing his place and where the Bulls are. Now we just got to see him actually make the necessary steps and make the smart moves to get the Bulls out of hell. And if he does that, great. And, I think we could take that move forward and be in a much better position. So let's hope that comes with the Chicago Bulls in this. Michael Reinsdorf realizing where he went faulty at, even saying things like, rather than, there needs to be check-ins. We need to be checking in more than once every couple of years. Like, that's good recognition. Now go out there and practice it, and let's see if they can do it, man. But that's going to do it for my time for today, y'all, man. I appreciate you guys tuning in, man. The Bulls are clearly set up for the potential of something bigger. The real question is, will the Bulls finally get it right? And we'll see, right? Make sure you guys stay locked in with us. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel as well. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. If you guys want to follow us, you can do so at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.